How cell phones ended truckers' CB radio brotherhood. Picture this. It's 1995 and you're driving Interstate 80 through Nebraska at 2 in the morning. The highway stretches endlessly ahead, a ribbon of asphalt under star-filled skies. Your only companions are the rumble of your diesel engine and the crackling voices coming through your Citizens Band radio. Breaker 19, this here's Moondog eastbound at mile marker 126 looking for a smoky report. The response comes immediately from 3 different drivers. You got Tombstone here, eastbound Smoky at the 180 westbound side, local boy with a customer. This was the golden age of CB radio culture, when 11 million truckers used Channel 19 as their lifeline, creating a mobile community that spanned the continent. Every long-haul driver had their handle, their unique radio persona that became as important as their real name. The airwaves buzzed constantly with traffic reports, weather warnings, truck stop recommendations, and the endless banter that made those lonely miles bearable. But within 20 years, this entire communication ecosystem would be virtually extinct, killed not by regulation or technology failure, but by something that seemed completely unrelated: the cellular telephone. The Citizens Band radio system emerged from the Federal Communications Commission's allocation of 23 channels in the 27 MHz band for public use without requiring licenses, expanding to 40 channels by 1977. Channel 19 became the unofficial trucker frequency after the 1973 oil crisis, when drivers organized convoys to protest fuel shortages and speed limits, using CB radios to coordinate their movements and avoid law enforcement. The trucking industry embraced CB technology because it solved a critical problem. Long-haul drivers spent days or weeks on the road with no way to communicate with other drivers, dispatchers, or family members. By 1980, over 30 million CB radios were in use across America, with truck drivers representing the most active user base. The range of a typical CB radio was roughly 5 to 15 miles depending on terrain and atmospheric conditions, creating moving bubbles of communication as trucks traveled the interstate system. Drivers developed an elaborate culture around CB use, complete with specialized slang, etiquette rules, and social hierarchies based on experience and reputation. A driver's handle became their identity on the road. Names like Rubber Duck, Pigpen, Chrome Dome, and Midnight Cowboy that reflected personality, appearance, or truck characteristics. The morning coffee break conversations on Channel 19 were legendary, with drivers sharing everything from traffic conditions to personal problems, creating genuine friendships that might span decades without the participants ever meeting face-to-face. The CB Radio Brotherhood operated on unwritten rules that governed everything from proper radio etiquette to mutual assistance during emergencies. Experienced drivers mentored rookies, teaching them not just how to operate the radio, but how to interpret the constant stream of coded information about road conditions, law enforcement locations, and truck stop amenities. Bear in the bushes meant hidden police, chicken coop referred to way stations, and hammer down meant clear roads ahead for high-speed travel. During winter storms or mechanical breakdowns, CB radios became literal lifelines, with drivers coordinating rescue efforts, sharing emergency supplies, and guiding stranded motorists to safety. The system was particularly valuable for independent owner-operators who lacked the corporate communication networks of large trucking companies. These solo drivers relied entirely on CB chatter for real-time information about fuel prices, parking availability, and route conditions that could make the difference between profit and loss on a long haul. Truck stops installed high-powered base station radios with external antennas, creating communication hubs where drivers could reach out dozens of miles to incoming traffic. The evening hours brought the most colorful conversations, when drivers wound down for mandatory rest periods and the airwaves filled with storytelling, jokes, political debates, and philosophical discussions that revealed the surprising intelligence and wit of long-haul truckers. By 1995, cellular telephone technology was beginning its explosive growth phase, but most truckers still considered cell phones expensive toys for business executives and urban professionals. Early cellular service was spotty outside major metropolitan areas, with dead zones covering vast stretches of rural interstate where truckers spent most of their time. The phones themselves were bulky, battery life was measured in hours rather than days, and airtime costs could easily exceed a driver's weekly fuel budget. More importantly, cell phones were designed for private one-to-one conversations, the exact opposite of CB radio's community-based broadcast model. A trucker could call his dispatcher or family members, but he couldn't tap into the continuous stream of road intelligence that made CB radios so valuable for professional drivers. The cellular networks of 1995 covered roughly 65% of the United States population, but only 30% of the geographic area, leaving enormous gaps in rural coverage exactly where truckers needed communication most. Early adopters among drivers typically used cell phones to supplement rather than replace their CB radios, keeping both systems active to access different types of information and communication. The transformation began accelerating around 2000 as cellular coverage expanded rapidly into rural areas and phone costs plummeted due to increased competition among wireless carriers. Digital technology improved call quality and battery life, while reducing the size and weight of phones, making them practical for truckers who lived in cramped cab spaces. More importantly, trucking companies began equipping their fleets with cell phones to improve communication with drivers, dispatchers, and customers. Fleet managers discovered they could maintain much better control over their operations by calling drivers directly, rather than hoping they would monitor CB radio channels for company messages. The efficiency gains were immediate and measurable. Instead of broadcasting a message on CB and waiting for the right driver to respond, dispatchers could reach specific drivers instantly with load assignments, route changes, or customer updates. By 2005, cellular coverage reached 85% of U.S. highways, and unlimited calling plans made cost less of a factor for professional drivers. The rise of truck-specific GPS navigation systems also reduced dependence on CB traffic reports, as drivers could get automated alerts about construction delays, accidents, and route closures without relying on human sources. The death blow to CB radio culture came from an unexpected source: the fundamental change in how the trucking industry operated. Deregulation had increased competition and reduced profit margins, forcing drivers to focus more intensively on efficiency and less on the social aspects of trucking. Electronic logging devices mandated by federal regulations eliminated much of the flexibility that had made CB conversations possible, as drivers could no longer extend their driving time to participate in lengthy radio discussions. Just-in-time delivery systems demanded precise scheduling that left little room for the informal networking that had sustained CB culture. Younger drivers entering the industry had grown up with cell phones and internet communication, viewing CB radio as an outdated technology used by an aging workforce. They preferred text messaging, smartphone apps, and social media platforms that provided more sophisticated communication options than analog radio technology could offer. The CB airwaves themselves became increasingly dominated by off-topic chatter, profanity, and interference from illegal high-power amplifiers, driving away professional drivers who needed reliable business communication. By 2010, Channel 19 had largely devolved into the broadcast equivalent of an unmoderated internet forum, with serious truckers abandoning the frequency in favor of private cellular communication. The economic realities of modern trucking accelerated CB radio's decline as corporate fleets prioritized measurable productivity over driver satisfaction. Large trucking companies discovered that cell phones provided better liability protection than CB radios, as digital networks created detailed records of communication between drivers and dispatchers that could be crucial in legal disputes. Fleet management software integrated seamlessly with cellular systems, allowing real-time tracking of vehicles, automated delivery confirmations, and instant communication with customers. The rise of electronic health records and drug testing requirements made trucking companies more cautious about any technology that might encourage unprofessional behavior, and CB radio's association with crude humor and anti-authority attitudes made it seem like a liability rather than an asset. Independent owner-operators found themselves forced to adopt cellular communication to remain competitive for freight contracts, as brokers and shippers demanded the instant accessibility that only phones could provide. The smartphone revolution that began with the iPhone in 2007 transformed cellular devices from simple communication tools into portable computers capable of handling navigation, weather monitoring, fuel price comparison, and dozens of other functions that had previously required separate devices or CB radio coordination with other drivers. By 2015, CB radio had effectively disappeared from most professional trucking operations, surviving primarily among recreational users and a shrinking population of old-school owner-operators who maintained the systems for nostalgic rather than practical reasons. The transformation was so complete that new drivers often received no training in CB radio operation, and many trucks rolled off factory assembly lines without CB installations for the first time since the 1970s. Truck stops removed their base station radios and eliminated CB-related merchandise from their stores as demand evaporated. The specialized vocabulary and culture that had defined trucker identity for decades began disappearing as younger drivers developed their professional identities around different technologies and communication methods. Highway patrol officers noted a significant decline in CB-related enforcement issues, but also lost a valuable source of real-time traffic intelligence that had helped them respond to accidents and hazardous conditions. The irony was that cellular technology had solved CB radio's technical limitations so thoroughly that it eliminated the human connections that had made those limitations tolerable. Where CB had created community through shared struggles with poor reception and limited range, cell phones provided perfect clarity and unlimited range while isolating each driver in their own private communication bubble. The killing of CB radio culture represents one of the most complete technology transitions in American history, as an entire communication ecosystem vanished in roughly 2 decades without anyone making a conscious decision to abandon it. The change happened gradually, driver by driver, company by company, as the practical advantages of cellular communication overwhelmed the social benefits of CB radio community. Today's truckers communicate through smartphone apps, text messaging, and social media platforms that provide more sophisticated networking capabilities than CB radio ever offered. But something essential was lost in the transition. The spontaneous mentorship that helped rookie drivers learn the profession, the real-time intelligence sharing that improved safety and efficiency for everyone, and the simple human connection that made long-haul trucking a brotherhood rather than just a job. Modern truck drivers are more isolated than their predecessors, despite having access to infinitely more communication technology. They can video chat with family members, stream entertainment content, and access unlimited information through their smartphones, but they've lost the random human interactions that made every trip an adventure. The CB radio era created lasting friendships, marriage relationships, and business partnerships through chance encounters on the airwaves, connections that simply don't happen in today's cellular communication environment. When the last CB radio falls silent on the interstate highways, it will mark the end of the last truly democratic communication medium in American transportation, where anyone with a $20 radio could join conversations that spanned continents and social classes. Cell phones didn't just kill a technology, they killed a culture, ending the trucker brotherhood that had been the soul of the American highway for nearly 4 decades.